They have him surrounded. Israeli forces storm the headquarters of Yasser Arafat. He says, "Make me a martyr." The U.S. blames the escalating violence on the Palestinians, but urges Israel to show restraint. In Pakistan, a smile for the cameras from a terror suspect now ordered to stand trial for the kidnap and murder of American journalist Daniel Pearl. And this plane has quite a story. You will hear it tonight.
This is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Dan's off tonight. I'm Ed Bradley. In the Middle East tonight, Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat is isolated, embattled, and nearly alone. Branded an enemy by Israel's prime minister, Arafat is surrounded by Israeli tanks and troops who occupy most of his West Bank headquarters. But Arafat remains defiant, vowing to die a martyr. And the Palestinian suicide bombing campaign goes on. The latest attacker was a teenage girl. This violent day began with Israel's advance into the Palestinian city of Ramallah, as correspondent David Hawkins reports.
Israeli forces rolled into Ramallah today, crashing through the walls of Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat's West Bank headquarters. Israeli soldiers fought room to room with Arafat's personal guard. Arafat is now confined to 2 rooms in a windowless second-floor office. The power's been cut, and Israeli tanks guard the foot of the stairs. Israel says it does not intend to kill or capture the Palestinian leader.
He decided about strategy of terror and formed a coalition of terror, and therefore is going to be isolated.
Connected to the outside world only by cell phone, Arafat says he'd rather die than surrender. He told Palestinian television, "None of us are shaken or scared or will retreat." The Israeli onslaught follows a Passover suicide bomb attack that killed 22 people and comes one day after an Arab League peace offer.
It's a direct hit at the olive branch that was raised by Crown Prince Abdullah and every Arab yesterday.
But today, Palestinian militant groups declared all-out war against Israel. Another suicide bomber, a teenage girl from Bethlehem, blew herself up in a Jerusalem supermarket, killing 2 Israelis. Ayat al-Aras was engaged to be married. Her fiancé says he didn't know anything about her deadly plans.
What happens is that you have individuals among the Palestinians who are driven to desperation or to seek revenge, who are reacting to this massive violence against the Palestinian people.
Arabs throughout the Middle East are reacting too. There were angry protests in Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon. In Jerusalem, Israeli police stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound after Friday prayers, firing tear gas and stun grenades at Palestinians when some of them threw stones at Jewish worshippers at the Western Wall below. That's how all this started exactly 18 months ago to the day. Then Ariel Sharon's visit to the Jerusalem holy site touched off the Palestinian Intifada. Now Sharon's got Arafat cornered, and the world is waiting to see just what he'll do with him. Ed?
David Hawkins in Tel Aviv. Now we have a first-hand account of today's fighting from CBS News correspondent Kimberly Dozier, who spent much of the day exposed to very real danger in the streets of Ramallah.
The Palestinians no longer have authority here. Israeli tanks moved into Ramallah before dawn, surrounding the headquarters of Palestinian President Yasser Arafat. And when they couldn't get around buildings or cars, they simply went over or through. The people of Ramallah listened and watched from their homes. Anyone who ventured outside risked being shot. This man was killed not far from Yasser Arafat's compound. Palestinian journalists in a clearly marked media car also drew gunfire. They say it came from an Israeli position, hitting the driver in the head. These men are the militants Israeli troops are after. They vowed to defend Yasser Arafat to the death, whatever the cost. At least one of them paid that price today. The armored advance on Arafat's headquarters has been slow and methodical. Soldiers waited until every building and high point had been secured. They knew where they were going because this used to be an Israeli military compound. By mid-afternoon, they had breached the walls and tanks rolled through to the inner courtyard.
We've seen Israeli soldiers go into those holes that they've punched into the side of the building, and we saw some on the upper level running towards the central area where Yasser Arafat lives and works. We can hear exchanges of fire just like that one. It seems that the soldiers are moving room by room and firing at any threat they encounter.
There were small dramas, too. Ambulance crews in the firing line were forced to negotiate to reach the wounded. But they were told to wait. Israeli soldiers were still inside. As it grew dark tonight, the assault was picking up pace again. Kimberly Dozier, CBS News, Ramallah.
The fighting in Ramallah and the almost daily suicide bombings in Israel add up to a big setback for U.S. Mideast policy. But there's no sign President Bush might alter his approach or soften U.S. support for Israel. Bill Plant is at the White House tonight. Bill?
Ed, good evening. For the Bush administration, which never wanted to get involved in Mideast peacemaking to begin with, the escalating violence is more than just a human tragedy. It's also a major setback in the war against terrorism. Today, as Israeli tanks shelled Arafat's offices, the administration put the blame for the mayhem squarely on the Palestinian terrorists and demanded again that Arafat act against them.
That's what has caused this crisis to come upon us, not the absence of a political way forward, but terrorism in its rawest form.
Put another way, Powell was suggesting that the U.S. is not to blame for not forcing a political settlement. But that is precisely what many Palestinians believe, that the bloodshed won't end until the U.S. forces Israel to pull back. They are likely to be disappointed. The president got regular updates at his ranch, but his staff made clear that he has no intention of personally intervening in what he views as a no-win situation. Mr. Bush has decided to keep U.S. envoy Anthony Zinni in the region to pursue the idea of a ceasefire, but there's very little optimism about that here. Many in the Bush administration believe that Yasser Arafat has no real incentive to stop the violence, but they continue to hope that international pressure will yet force him to do so. Ed?
Bill Plant at the White House. For perspective on today's events in the Middle East, I spoke with an expert, our CBS News consultant, Professor Fuad Ajami of Johns Hopkins University. Fuad, how did we end up here? People were talking about peace, and now this looks like war.
Well, Ed, we've arrived at this point because this is really the war that Yasser Arafat chose. It will be recalled. We should remember that in September 2000, Yasser Arafat was offered statehood by Ehud Barak and Bill Clinton. He was offered it at Camp David. He turned away from it. He went home and launched this war. It was the war that he chose. It's been 18 months, and he's unleashed this wave of terror because he believes that he can win this way. And it's a choice he's made. It's really, for all practical purposes, Arafat's war.
Do you think this is the end of Arafat?
I don't think so. I think, to quote Mark Twain, maybe perhaps that man's obituary, news of his death have been greatly exaggerated. Arafat was written off in 1982 after the Lebanon War. Arafat was written off when he embraced Saddam Hussein in 1990-91. The man goes on. He has more lives than a cat. He draws on the resources of the Palestinian people, on the liberalism of Israel, on the bigger resources of the Arab world, and on the indulgence of American diplomacy. His game is to hang around and wait for yet another day.
And who has the upper hand in the Arab world? The people on the one hand who want to see peace, or the people on the other hand who want Israel destroyed? I
think there is a deep division within the Arab world. I think there are people in the Arab world who really believe that they have Israel on the run. And I think what has happened in the Arab world, there is this deep division between people who think it's time now to chase Israel because they believe that Israel has lost its power, and they looked at the Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon in May 2000 and saw that as the beginning of the end, if you will, of Israel. And those who are willing to let bygones be bygones because they understand that they can't modernize the Arab world, they can't repair the Arab world, they can't reform the Arab world without bidding farewell to this terrible conflict with Israel.
And what does it mean for the United States? Neither side seems to be listening to the pleas of the Bush administration.
Well, I think President Bush had it right. President Bush has been reluctant to engage himself in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and I think we have our own war in the Middle East. We have our own war in the Arab-Muslim world against terror and possibly against Iraq. And I don't think we should engage in Arafat's antics because this is Arafat's war. He wants our war against terror to be held hostage to his own conflict with Israel.
Fuad, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Turning to the war in Afghanistan, the U.S. commander, General Tommy Franks, said today the first American soldier killed during the recent Operation Anaconda may have been hit by friendly fire. Army Chief Warrant Officer Stanley Harriman died March 2nd in an attack on a convoy of U.S. and allied forces in eastern Afghanistan. About the same time, an Air Force AC-130 gunship in the area fired on what the plane's crew believed was an enemy convoy. Not clear whether it was. General Franks has ordered an investigation of the coincidence. A Pakistani judge says the kidnap murder trial of 4 men charged in the killing of Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl will begin next Friday before an anti-terrorism tribunal. Prosecutors today firmed up their case against the alleged ringleader, as Lee Cowan reports from Karachi.
His face visible for the very first time since his arrest, the alleged mastermind behind Daniel Pearl's murder emerged from an armored van with a smirk. It was before prosecutors announced they'd uncovered damaging new evidence against him. Prosecutors now say Pearl met Sheikh Omar Saeed 3 weeks before he disappeared at a hotel in Lahore, some 800 miles from Karachi. If true, it would only bolster U.S. claims that Saeed had set an elaborate plot for Pearl, befriending him, then luring him to this restaurant in the heart of Karachi for another meal. Then, just days later, having him executed in front of a video camera.
Such strong circumstantial evidence is sufficient enough to secure conviction.
And you're confident?
I'm confident about it.
But Saeed's father is confident too, quietly insisting his son is no terrorist. Do you think your son is innocent?
Yes.
Without a doubt?
Without any doubt.
Because why?
Because of his character.
It's that character the government is worried about. Prosecutors are so concerned about security, they've demanded his trial be held here, a jailhouse, rather than a public courthouse. Saeed's new attorney sees 3 problems with that.
Nobody's there. Nobody to see it, nobody to hear it. We want open trial.
So does the U.S., on U.S. soil. But with Pakistan's court proceedings already in full swing, most agree the U.S. may never get its turn.
If he's convicted, Sheikh cannot be extradited until he's served his sentence. So one is looking at, really, perhaps never, or maybe at least not for many years.
For now, justice for the family of an American citizen brutally murdered may lie exclusively in the hands of a Pakistani court. Lee Cowan, CBS News, Karachi.
This is the CBS Evening News for Friday, and up next, a plane with a storied past and how it ended up here. Then, a new kind of hunting. There's no killing. What's the point? Stay tuned.
Is there no way to keep Israelis and Palestinians from killing each other? And if there is a way, what is it? Leslie Stahl with Ariel Sharon, Sunday on 60 Minutes.
You know when you're not feeling like yourself. You're tired all the time. You may feel sad, hopeless, and lose interest in things you once loved. You may feel anxious, can't even sleep. Your daily activities and relationships suffer. You know when you just don't feel right. Now here's something you may not know. These are some symptoms of depression, a serious medical condition affecting over 20 million Americans. While the cause is unknown, depression may be related to an imbalance of naturally occurring chemicals between nerve cells in the brain. Zoloft, a prescription medicine, works to correct this imbalance. When you know more about what's wrong, you can help make it right. Only your doctor can diagnose depression. Zoloft is not for everyone. People taking medicines called MAOI shouldn't take Zoloft. Side effects may include dry mouth, insomnia, sexual side effects, diarrhea, nausea, and sleepiness. Zoloft is not habit-forming. Talk to your doctor about Zoloft, the #1 prescribed brand of its kind. Zoloft. When you know more about what's wrong, you can help make it right.
When my doctor first recommended hormone replacement therapy for menopause, I didn't listen. I was in denial. Then my hot flashes and night sweats got worse, making me tired and irritable.
HRT relieves menopausal symptoms and prevents bone loss. HRT is not right for all women. Talk to your doctor about the benefits and risks.
I said yes to HRT. Now my hot flashes are gone, I feel great. See your doctor and say yes to HRT.
Around here, my kids will eat almost anything if it's topped with cheese. The folks at Kraft knew that. They've created a bunch of new ranch dressings with real Kraft cheese.
Oh, Mama.
Like I said, around here, the dressing is Kraft.
Even people who seem alike can have different nutritional needs. Ensure helps meet those needs, like Ensure High Protein with protein for muscles. It's a source of complete balanced nutrition. Ensure High Protein. Drink to your health.
A huge recall is underway of possibly defective and dangerous infant car seats. Graco said today almost 1 million of its snug ride seats may be missing parts that secure the carrier to the base and prevent it from detaching in a sudden stop or crash. The government says safety seats reduce the risk of fatal injury to infants by over 70%. A follow-up now on an incident we told you about last night, the splashdown landing of a newly restored vintage aircraft in a corner of Seattle's Puget Sound. Turns out the plane is not only rare, it has quite a colorful past, as Bill Whitaker reports.
Watching the crane move in to lift the Silver Hulk from Seattle's Elliott Bay, you just know there has to be a good story here. Eyewitnesses say the vintage plane appeared to have engine troubles just before it splashed down.
He was coming right at us.
For a half a second, you didn't know which way to go.
Yeah,
So
you didn't know whether you should stay or you should run.
The four-man crew got out with minor scrapes, but that's only part of the story. This sinking ship was once the Grande Dame of the air. Built in 1939, named the Clipper Flying Cloud, it was one of only 10 Boeing Stratoliners, the first pressurized commercial planes to fly above the weather from New York to L.A. in just over 12 hours. So chic, eccentric millionaire Howard Hughes bought one. Shoved aside by World War II, this one fell into the hands of Haitian dictator Papa Doc Duvalier. Eventually found crop dusting, this last of the mighty Stratoliners was lovingly restored over 6 years by Boeing volunteers. The Smithsonian's Donald Lopez was awaiting its delivery as the centerpiece of the new branch of DC's Air and Space Museum.
It's a very rugged airplane, and the pilot was very good that put it in the water. He knew just how to do it at the absolute minimum speed, so the damage was minimized.
The Clipper Flying Cloud should soon be out of the water, restored once again. This old bird has a few more stories yet to tell. Bill Whitaker, CBS News, Los Angeles.
You're watching the CBS Evening News. Up next, big game hunting with a big difference in the wilds of South Africa.
It's 4,000 miles long, so how secure can our border with Canada be? Eye on America investigated what we found Monday on the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Be adventurous. Be plugged in. Be involved. Be powerful. Be yourself. Because it's your choice, your voice, and your attitude. Today's AARP.
Can you say ha?
Please hold for
Never pay for long distance, never pay for roaming with Singular Wireless. And now for March Madness, get 3,500 night and weekend bonus minutes plus a great deal on a Nokia phone. Welcome to nationwide self-expression.
Every day, tens of thousands of people get their start the exact same way. They get in their new Oldsmobile. And they drive with the confidence of a 5-year, 60,000-mile GM protection plan. What a way to start the day. Are you in the market? Get in an Oldsmobile, backed by GM. And for a limited time, get 0% APR financing.
Easter Bunny!
This Easter.
Easter Bunny!
Whack-a-Terry's. The original chocolate orange. Also enjoy Terry's chocolate raspberry. Smashing good taste.
In my 30s, I tried everything for my headaches. Then I discovered Bayer Extra Strength and the pain went away. In my 40s, I started getting bad back pain and Bayer came through again. Now I have arthritis in my knees and I still depend on Bayer Extra Strength. Bayer goes to work right at the site of pain and inflammation. Nothing works better. For relief I can always count on, there's still no better choice than Bayer. And regular strength aspirin is the only pain reliever that can help save your life.
Bayer. Take it for pain, take it for life.
In the old days, athlete's foot meant using Lotrimin AF or Tinactin for 4 whole weeks.
Who does that? Today, Lamisil AT kills the fungus with just 1 week's use.
And keeps you athlete's foot free for 3 months.
Lamisil AT, the best way to cure athlete's foot.
The cost of prescription drugs is soaring. A new study says the increase last year of more than 17% was largely driven by a few well-advertised, high-priced drugs. The average price for a prescription also rose sharply last year to almost $50. Most hunters have always been willing to spend whatever it takes to pursue their prey. Now some are paying a premium, but coming home without a trophy, which is just the way they want it, as we hear from Mark Phillips on assignment in South Africa.
You've heard of the great white hunter. These are the great green hunters, in pursuit of the big game of Africa, but in a new and very correct way. Here on a game reserve in the remote northeastern wilds of South Africa, the prey is the once almost extinct white rhino. But the weapon of choice isn't a rifle and bullets, it's an air gun and tranquilizer darts. Death isn't the object of this hunt, life is.
Okay, so we just go through it again. Wayne, you're going to be there first. You're going to do the drilling, right? Dave will insert the transponders.
The hunters are briefed by the park's chief ranger on what their jobs are, how the animal is to be measured, how tissue samples are to be taken. For this privilege, the hunters pay an extra $200 a day on top of the game park's 5-star hotel rates. The irony is that this new kind of hunt is more difficult than the old. It's actually harder to dart a wild animal than to just shoot it. On this shot, the dart jammed and the tranquilizer drug wasn't injected. On this shot, the dart bounces off the rhino's tough hide. Finally, a suitable mother and calf are spotted, but the mother has to be sedated first. And despite a good hit in the neck, she needs help to go down. Only then can the vet dart the calf. Racing against time, the animal's ears are notched so it can be identified. A microchip is inserted to keep track of it. Samples are taken. This green hunt isn't just politically and environmentally correct, it makes financial sense too. The premium these hunters pay goes towards the science being used to sustain the species. This is hunting animals to save them. The tissue and other samples are sent to a lab, supported in part by the hunters' fees. And here the work isn't just about the health of animals, there's a human implication as well.
Stay right there, don't move, don't move. Keep right quiet.
Paul Bartels, who runs the lab, has also been guarding lions because they may hold the key to a current epidemic affecting people, AIDS.
There's a disease called FIV, feline immunodeficiency virus, actually very similar to HIV.
Somehow, the lions managed to suppress the virus, and scientists, including some in the U.S., are studying samples collected here to see if they might contain the key to a future vaccine for AIDS in humans. Whether the prey is lion or rhino, it's a new kind of hunt. Good for animals, good for people, good for science, good for business. Mark Phillips, CBS News, on assignment on the Pinda Game Reserve, South Africa.
Going to the airport? Hey, Bill, you stayed here too? Yeah, want to share a cab? Deal. All right. Great hotel. Yeah, pricey though. Wasn't that bad. Yeah, if you're CEO. Why? What did you pay? Here's my bill. I didn't pay nearly that. Not even half. You got ripped.
Hey, buddy, I can get you a great deal on the Brooklyn Bridge.
Save up to 70% on hotels worldwide. Hotels.com. The best prices at the best places, guaranteed.
You're just begging for heartburn, aren't you?
What are you doing?
Forget about these. Here, Norman turned me on to Pepsi Complete.
And?
And I tried one. That's all it took.
One?
Mm-hmm. Complete works fast like those, but lasts like those. Just one controls acid all day.
Lasts all day.
Nothing else like it. Where are you going?
Sausages, anyone?
Pepsid Complete. Just one, and heartburn's done. Can I give my dog a perm?
Are cats smarter than dolphins?
Look at those teeth. Should I get him braces? What's with all the wiggling?
What's the best flea and tick treatment? Now that I can answer. Frontline Plus. It's the longest lasting, most complete flea protection you can get. And it kills the tick that may transmit Lyme disease. Plus 3 others. It's the best.
Ask your veterinarian about Frontline Plus. For dogs and cats, Frontline is the veterinarian's #1 choice.
Is it okay for Rudy here to eat bean dip?
New pledge with orange oil.
It cleans and revitalizes wood to a lasting luster. Orange oil seems to break up the grease.
We're degreasing the muck. It's obviously from the orange oil. It really does clean.
Orange oil revitalizes.
It's like a vitamin for my wood furniture.
Pledge orange oil. It brought this wood back to life. It's bringing out the natural shine. I'd love to tell my husband that we don't need to redo the cabinets.
New pledge with orange oil. The power of orange oil to clean and revitalize. Jesse Johnson, a family company.
It's unbelievable.
Tired of those extra pounds? Become a lean machine with help from our Weight Off series. Wake up to what's happening Monday on The Early Show with Bryant Gumbel and Jane Clayson.
As the week comes to an end, peace in the Middle East remains elusive. Yasser Arafat is under siege after the Israeli army stormed his headquarters and fought with his guards. The United States has assurances Arafat will not be harmed. The U.S. blames the Palestinians for the growing violence, including a suicide bombing today in a Jerusalem supermarket. Also in Jerusalem today, Christians marched in a Good Friday procession, as they did tonight in Rome, retracing the steps of Christ as he was led to his death. 2,000 years ago, he expressed sorrow that people could not find the formula for peace. As the search goes on, the message of this season is, there is always hope. And that's the CBS Evening News. Bob Schieffer will have the latest Middle East Development Sunday on Face the Nation. Dan Rather will be along later tonight with 48 Hours. Richard Schlesinger has a preview.
A divorced couple fighting like cats and dogs over their dogs and cats.
I would walk through hell and fire for those animals.
This woman even went to jail to get custody of the kitties.
Put your hands behind your back.
Later on 48 Hours.
Dan Rather will be back in this chair on Monday. I'm Ed Bradley. Have a good night and a happy Easter.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.